Hello, dear podcast listener. You will discover in a few moments when this podcast actually gets rolling that my audio is terrible. I had the wrong microphone settings on, so my apologies that it sounds like I'm recording from underwater inside a bathtub. Nothing to be done now, but we can all embrace imperfection and mistakes, and we learn and we grow. Don't hold it against me, huh?
Hello, and welcome back to the Delve podcast. I'm Allie. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam, the Executive and Clinical Director at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Here at Delve, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. If you're interested in setting up a consultation, reach out to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And also check out our blog on our Substack. That's at delvepsych.substack.com.
Well, Allie, we both run a really interesting group together, largely built by you. I know we kind of had the idea together, but I thought you put in a ton of legwork to get this thing off the ground. But we have a whole group that is just centered around experiences of dating and relationship, and including loss and divorce and breakups and those things as well. But yeah, we've been doing that. What would you say, about a year now?
About a year, which is crazy, and thank you for that. Kudos. It's honestly been one of my favorite parts of the week, getting together with this group. It's really powerful. Just having people connect and help each other in their struggles and relate to each other, learn they're not alone in their struggles, and like help themselves out by helping other people out. It's just really beautiful to see. And yeah, I think it's really cool in this group to have people at different like stages of the dating process. People that are just getting through like a really bad breakup, people that have been in the throes of dating for a while, people that are just starting to get back into the dating game, people that are in like new relationships and trying to like navigate the newness of that. It's been really rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's so interesting to see the myriad problems that can happen in the early stages of a relationship, the later stages of a relationship. I think there's a reason why so much ink has been spilled trying to understand them, how to find them, how to start them, how to keep them, etc. And some of the Reddit questions that we answer from time to time as well have been so interesting, because it's just fascinating circumstances that we can find ourselves in, which it's part of what I find so fascinating about that is that it's all human created. Like, the idea of relationship is a human concoction. The problems that we have are all just made up in our heads. Like, the whole thing is we're playing here with our minds and creating all of these things with our minds. So it's so interesting how complicated and how important it can all get and feel, even though it's all made up. It's all made up. We're all agreeing to the way that it's made up, but it's all made up,
I never thought of it that way. But it is not lost on me that so many of the Reddit questions that I stumble upon when I'm trying to find questions for the podcast are in relation to like dating. How do I do this relationship thing? Am I doing this right? Is this a red flag? It's not lost on me that there's still so many questions surrounding it, and we're still trying to do this thing and trying to figure out how to do this thing that we made up, as you said.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think part of what's so interesting about it too is that if I were to look at the cases that come into our practice as of late, I would say the majority of them have something to do with romantic relationships. I don't know if that's quite like 60% or something of that nature, but like I would say more than half have some, like there's some focus on romantic relationship in some form or fashion.
Yeah, 100%. Because these relationships mean a lot to us. And so when they're not going well or when they end, it can be really devastating. And it's hard to process on our own. And like, we really want to do that with someone else.
Yeah.
One of the topics that came up consistently in our dating group is like, well, first of all, the dating game is so incredibly interesting these days in that it's mostly on these dating apps, right?
Mhm.
And not a lot of people are just meeting in the wild these days.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have your dating profile reflect you in the way that you want it to, and in the way that it attracts who you want. And also just like the mechanics of like how to go about these dating profiles and like how often should I be swiping, like what should I be looking for. So all of those sorts of questions, I feel like the mechanics of the dating apps and setting up a dating profile, how to do it well, so many questions around that area. And that's been an interesting topic of conversation within our group.
Yeah, I think that trying to figure out how to display yourself to the world is hard. I think there's so much psychology that goes into the way that we think about ourselves, the way that we think that others will receive us, what we think that they think, what we think that they want. And it's easy for people to get caught in their heads very quickly, I think. And I think right from the very get-go of like picking photos and deciding what prompts to respond to and all of those things, people really start to overanalyze or way underanalyze what they're saying. And I find in any way that it gets very disconnected from one's goals quite quickly.
Well, it can be so daunting to think like, okay, how do I represent who I am as a 360-degree whole person on this one profile that has maybe 3 questions about myself? That's daunting. You know, like how do you represent yourself in the fullness that you are in just that amount? It's like, what questions should I pick that represent me the best?
Well, and I think maybe we come to issue number one, that it is impossible to represent a full self, and we shouldn't try.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's not the goal. The goal, how do I say this? Over time, people will get to know us better. And so I think the goal is to begin conversations with people who might be matches for the goals that you have for dating. You just like the point of the profile itself is to begin conversations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that in mind, we're kind of relieving ourselves of the pressure of trying to represent all of ourselves on this one profile. And we're just trying to start a good conversation with someone who would be a good match for our goals and needs and values.
Potentially.
So what do we put on the profile?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's first maybe talk, because I guess the big two are pictures and prompts.
Yeah.
Let's talk pictures. What pitfalls have you seen with respect to pictures?
It's so hard because I think we're all very self-conscious, right? Of like, and looks, obviously with these dating apps, it can be an easy, oh, they're cute, oh, they're not, swipe left, you know? So we want our most beautiful, our most attractive like pictures like put up there. However, I think a lot of times because like we just prioritize, okay, like which picture do I look the hottest in? Like the pictures that we choose don't necessarily tell a story about like who we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we're missing that opportunity of like showing a bit more of our personality in the pictures, or like showing more of like activities we like to do within the pictures. That sorts of things that you could gauge from a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, just little hack, if you are dating with kind of depth and deeper connection in mind, which not everybody is. Sometimes we're, just trying to casually date or something of that nature. So we're not making that assumption at any point in the podcast. But if you're dating with more depth in mind, you get more characters if you add text to your photos in most of these apps. So you have an opportunity to say a little bit more about yourself, why this photo was chosen, what was important to you about it. I also wonder about, especially for the boys, especially for cis-het men, very few pictures exist of many of these guys. I think one of the major problems is that I have a hack when I'm doing couples therapy, because very often when I'm doing couples therapy with cis-het couples, I'll find that there's some level of identity kind of dissolving that happens with the guy. It's a broad trend that the guy sort of becomes a husband, becomes a father, and sort of the rest of him, other than being maybe a Bears fan, starts to dwindle a bit. And so I will ask, what is the last picture that was taken of you that's not on your wife or girlfriend's phone? And very often they don't know.
None. I don't have one.
Right. It's so interesting. Like, I've had guys who've said, I don't know that there's been a picture taken of me outside of with her or on her phone in the last 15 years.
Wow.
A whole person who's just doesn't exist anywhere outside of her vantage point. So one thing that I would say is that I think all of us should be thinking about, on some level, like, document your life, document the fact that you exist for yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody. You don't have to give it to anybody. But if on some level you want to show to anyone ever, or to yourself later, that you existed, that you mattered, that you were important, to a niece, to a nephew, to say, a nephew is born, oh, who's Uncle Adam, right? Like, have some picture to show, this is Uncle Adam, these are the things he does. I know for myself, several years ago, I started to think much more thoughtfully about that question of, like, where am I documented anywhere? And have been much more intentional in my own life about making sure that I actually do value taking pictures and being in them, and being places and being represented in some way. But I think for many men, when they start a dating profile, usually right after a breakup or fairly soon after a breakup, it's like, where are the pictures? They're on your ex's phone.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild. I didn't really think about that. And because you don't, when you're in a relationship, especially like a long-term relationship, you don't think, oh, this might end, I better take pictures of myself outside of the coupley photos I take with my significant other. But you still are like a human outside of the relationship, and there are opportunities for you to document your life outside of it. And you can, and you should. I also see, I know from a female's perspective, that's looking for a male partner, going through the apps, a lot of times too, a lot of the pictures on the male profiles, it'll be like a group of guys, and you have to kind of just try to figure out which guy it is.
Which guy, yeah. Because and what's so interesting about that too is it would seem so obvious. Like, if you know somebody, this is where neurology comes into play. If you know a person and you see them in a group of people, it's so obvious which one is the person. Our minds kind of like morph to understand who is who. And also, brief tangent, our brains are hardwired for faces. It's so interesting. Like this is in the superior temporal gyrus, the fusiform gyrus, they call it specifically. That whole section of the brain does a bit with categorization, but specifically categorization of faces. So with face blindness, specifically, that tends to be associated with things like either dysfunction or damage to the fusiform gyrus, specifically, either the tracts or the gray matter itself. Anyway, that's a tangent. So you're sort of taxing somebody's fusiform gyrus to parse apart who these various people are, and correctly categorize and remap onto, like, oh, that individual photo later is one of the blob of people that I'm just getting to know, and everything's grainy and small and on a phone anyway. I agree, it's not good strategy. So I think one of the little tips is don't lead with a group photo. If you have a group photo, probably blot out or something the other faces of the other people, because one, privacy, and two, clarity, and then three, the arrow point is very helpful. If you say this is the one that's me, that's helpful.
And that's kind of funny too, and kind of quirky.
Yeah. It indicates some degree of self-awareness as well. Like if I just throw a group picture up there and be like, they'll figure it out, or I don't care whether they figure it out. It's sort of got this kind of blasé, like whereas if you have an arrow, it's like, I'm clearly thinking about what the other person's experience is going to be in receiving this information.
No, totally. It definitely shows. It can give a little bit of a window into the person and how they think about how they're setting up this profile. And I didn't even think about that, like the privacy of the other members in the group photo and like blotting them out. I think that's fine. I don't think you should put up a picture of you and your ex and blot the ex out.
Yes, agreed. And also, I mean, for what it's worth, I've seen a lot of pictures with like kids, and it's like, I mean, privacy of children, I think maybe we should probably be a little bit more careful about. So
I agree. Yeah.
Kind of a safety thing.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as pictures go, be more intentional about taking pictures of like just yourself.
And asking your friends to take pictures of you. They will, typically.
Yes. Don't lead with a group photo. If you do have a group photo, maybe do a little arrow. That's kind of fun and quirky and self-aware. Anything else in the way of photos?
Yeah. Let's exclude kids. I think a mixture. Oh, and access.
Yes.
And I think having a mixture of things that represent, who you are, what you like, what you care about, is probably best. So if you can do something that shows an activity that you like, that's great. If you could do one that shows a bit more about, some aspect of your personality or silliness or something of that nature, that's great. I think all of the pictures coming from one photo shoot tends to be pretty obvious. So you generally want to show that you've got some well-roundedness to your life, which is why you need to have some well-roundedness to your life and be asking your friends to help you document that. Yes,
I agree. I feel like the photos from one photo shoot just feel a little staged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to, when I was on the dating apps, I would put like some of my acting headshots on there, and I feel like that was not the way to go.
I think you could probably have one.
Maybe one, but not the whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
I was proud of those pictures. I looked good, but
right.
But it didn't show anything outside of me besides I am an actor,
Yeah, well, and I hear you. Maybe being a little hard on yourself, but I think that we want to show the multidimensionality that we are, or at least suggest that we have some multidimensionality. So I get what you're saying, that picking one, maybe two in a category is fine, and then expanding from there for sure. Mm-hmm. But it is impossible to show a whole self, and you're not trying to show a whole self.
Yeah, I really like you reframing that and just like removing that pressure of trying to show your whole self. Okay, so as far as the prompts, this can be so daunting. We only have a few prompts like option. I think you can choose like 3 or 4 prompts.
Yeah,
And
typically depending on which app. Yeah.
they give you a bunch of choices and you're like, oh man, I don't even know like what would be the best prompts to choose.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. Firstly, it goes back to, in my opinion, figure out what it is that you were trying to accomplish with dating. So again, if you're thinking about dating deeply and for a long term, and you're looking for good partnership in a monogamous fashion or something of that nature, which you do not have to be, but if that is what you're looking for, then you're going to want to tend to pick prompts that drive in that direction. Not all of them. Again, you want to make sure, but if depth is and closeness and love and long-term partnership are your goals, then answering silly questions is not driving you toward that goal. Also, for what it's worth, and this might just be a pet peeve, I'm not a big fan of 2 truths and a lie. Why are we starting with lying? No lies.
We're starting out the relationship right with some lying, some fibbing.
No lies. Tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. I also, for what it's worth, I also think you do not have to take the prompt at face value. There's nobody checking. There's no police that's saying, like, did you actually answer the question? So you could do 2 truths and a lie. You pick the 2 truths and a lie prompt, and your reply very much could be, I will never lie to you.
Wow.
Right? It's quirky, it's funny. You don't have to take it at face value. You are free to choose and show your personality how you want to, right?
Wow, I love that. I can imagine a girl swooning to that answer from the guy.
And anyone.
Anyone. But yes, that's true. So okay, so if like all the prompts that were if our intention is like a serious long-term partnership and all of our questions on there are very like surface level, like what's your favorite TV show? I don't know. What's your favorite food?
Yeah.
It doesn't really show the depth of ourselves and the depth that we want from the person that we're looking for, right? Because they're going to go off and they're going to respond to our prompts, and so doesn't give them much to go off of in the way of depth. If our prompts are very surface level. That's one thought. The other thought is like, I do think like maybe we are looking for like a serious long-term partnership, but we do value like levity and humor and like silly goofiness too. Like, is there still room for like one prompt that kind of shows that side of us too?
Absolutely. I would say if you get 3,
Yeah.
one of them should focus on what you're offering to others. One should focus on what you need from others. And then the other one can be your wild card that's about something that's silly or a major interest of yours or a must-have or whatever it is. I also think that with most of these profiles, you don't just get 3. There's a way to add a little bit more to, hypothetically, even going back to pictures, you could put text on a picture and then upload it and like hack the system that way. So I haven't seen people do that, but you could. You often get captions with certain apps. Now they're doing voice and video prompts. You can pack a lot in those. So, I mean, I think you're very likely not as limited as you think. But if you were to go with there's 3, then what are you offering to others? What do you need from others? And then funny, silly, goofy, jokey, whatever.
I love that. That's so intentional. I feel like for the most part, people are thinking that, I don't know, strategically about how they're setting up these profiles. And so I really like that framing of like, what do you need from a partner? What's the second one? What do you offer? What you offer, and then like something that shows your personality, a little silly, goofy. Love it. I love that.
Yeah. And I can find that so many of these profiles are just very, very, very basic. It's like there's maybe 2, 3, 5 words per prompt. We didn't really think about it. I'm just trying to put something up there. And then, I mean, we've had clients who've had profiles like that come to us and being like, man, the dating world, it's just so rough out there. I can't find anybody. I'm not getting first dates. And it's you know, I wonder how these things are related.
Yeah. Yeah, there may be something to that. Oh, this is also good.
Well, and we should say as well, let's say that you were just looking for something much more, let's say casual.
uh
Tell people. Or let's say that you're recently out of a relationship, you're not really sure what you're looking for, and you know, maybe you're just in kind of like a talking phase or something like that. Tell people. If you can tell them who you are and where you're at, what you're doing, they can make good decisions for themselves. And I think one of my biggest complaints about the way that most people date is they're struggling so much to take seriously the other person's experience. How are they going to experience me? And can I start, if I'm looking for love, can I start with the loving action to take care of the people who are trying to look to find me and love me? Can I begin with a loving action outward, even though these are strangers?
Yeah. I think the first step is to even kind of get real with yourself about what you are looking for right now and kind of even knowing that in the first place when you step onto these dating apps. And then second, like being transparent. I think we're afraid to be transparent because we don't want to be rejected or judged for what we're looking for, like for just getting out of a relationship or whatnot. But it really is truly a really kind thing you can do for the other people that you're interacting with, for them to know kind of what they're getting into, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think I get it on some level. We're very self-interested creatures and we want this to go well for ourselves. But I think the more self-interested we are in the, online dating process, likely the more self-interested we are in the future dating process. And typically speaking, you're going to have a harder time in relationships the more self-interested you are. Typically, relationships go better if you're offering to others. You still need boundaries, still need self-respect, still need to make sure that you're taking care of your own needs first, of course. But in trying to find a romantic partner, you're trying to take care of and love someone else, and hoping that they'll do the same back for you. But that means that we need to lead with loving actions. You can control your half, you can't control their half. You can respond to what they do, you can't control what they do. So you can control your half of the equation. And I would say start that right away with people that you haven't even met yet. Build a dating profile that considers how the person I want to be with is going to receive it. Most people won't receive it. Most people won't like it. Most people will reject. Most people are not your person or a match, but one of them is. And so I want that profile to respect that person who I'm trying to get close to, as well as, if I can, all the other people. So lead with respect and lead with care and lead with love from the beginning. We've talked about leave a relationship lovingly, start a relationship lovingly too.
I think that's very well said. So we have our profile set up. We have our intentional questions. We've been really smart about the photos that we've chosen. So now comes the part where we're actually like swiping, doing the thing. And we've talked about in group kind of 2 ways to go about it. It's like either we're the ones just going out and swiping, or we're the ones like waiting to get all the likes in our inbox, and then we're choosing from the people that have liked us first, or alternatively doing a mixture of both. What are your thoughts in the way of strategy here?
Well, firstly, I think being in a good headspace in the moment that you're engaging is really important, because I think if we are coming from a position of desperation, if we're coming from a position of defeatedness, jadedness, anger, self-protectiveness, anything of that nature, people are going to struggle to get close to us if that's how we're engaging, if that's what we're feeling. That's not to say don't engage if you're feeling those things. But again, it goes back to intentionality, the internal conversation with the self as this is happening. So I would encourage, as you open an app, check in with yourself. How am I feeling right now? Am I hopeful that one person responds? Am I pissed off that nobody likes me? And what stories am I telling myself? Or am I feeling kind of settled right now and connected to the important people in my life and a bit more ready to begin to engage? It's not the case that you will always feel ready to engage in any moment in time, but it's important to notice that if you're in that mindset of desperation, or take it or leave it, or I don't trust any of these people, that's going to come across in the way that you interact with them. And it may indicate some of the work that you need to do in order to be more loving toward the people that you want to love you. Because you have to love again, I know I'm harping on this, you have to love all of the people that you're engaging with a little bit, so that you can build that bond of loving with any of the people that might end up actually being a good long-term match for you.
Yeah. It can be so hard though, when it's like you have been single for a while, say, and you've been on the dating apps, been in the trenches for a while, and you've been swiping and swiping, and like nothing's working out. And like one of your big goals for your life is a long-term serious relationship, and it's just not working out. So and I'm feeling that, like I'm feeling sort of this bitterness and resentment for the whole process. So do I just not go on the apps at all?
So yeah, I would offer a couple of things. One, let's say I'm starting to get that bitterness, defeat, jadedness, etc. Call your friends, call your mom or dad, talk to your therapist, and begin to work through that. Be talking with your friends who are single, who aren't single, about their experiences. Work your way through it, because at the end of the day, if you have the app at all, an app at all, there's a part of you that has some hope, right?
Right.
You wouldn't do it at all if there was, in your mind, literally no point. So even the idea of this is all pointless is a story we're telling ourselves. And also, it's not all pointless. Plenty of people start relationships off of dating apps all the time. So mathematically, empirically, it is not pointless. It is not hopeless. Hopelessness and pointlessness are stories we're telling ourselves. So we have to work with those stories that we're telling ourselves. I also think, especially unfortunately for cishet women, there's a lot of interaction with bad behavior online, and it's difficult to lead with love and have patience and hope and grace for others when there's so much bad behavior on a daily basis. I think that's an added challenge that I wish we could get out of the world of online dating completely, all dating if we could. It's a form of aggression, and I think that that's not well enough understood by especially cishet men.
Yeah, I think that piece can especially be exhausting for women, just the amount of messages in our inboxes that are just disgusting, quite frankly. And it can get just, it can feel really just exhausting trying to like weed through a lot of the BS to find potential partners that are actually like of value. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I would imagine it involves a almost constant experience of feeling the disrespect that other people have for you, and to try to be in the mindset of finding love and engaging lovingly while being actively disrespected repeatedly feels challenging.
Absolutely.
What guidance would you give to set women in experiencing that, working through that?
It's really sad. I was just talking to some friends about this the other day. Is at least in our conversation, we felt like in some ways we've sort of become numb to it in a way because it happens so often, which is like infuriating in itself, that like we're so used to the catcalling, the creepy guy coming into our workplace and hitting us up and not taking no for an answer. Just the unsolicited pictures in our inboxes, like you can become really, I don't know, numb to it. But it also, I think after a period of time kind of wears on you, and it's like, are there any good guys out there? Like, what is going on with the male population here? And I it I know it's hard, especially like when you've just received one of those disgusting unsolicited pictures or messages, to believe that there's still good guys out there, but there are. um yeah, I don't know, because I've seen them and I know them.
Right. I think I wish that we could improve the education for people trying to date such that we could understand that that is highly unlikely to build the kind of relationship that you're looking for. That's not to say that not every there are people who would very much enjoy those experiences and are seeking that sort of thing out. I think that's probably also why it still happens to some degree. I think there's kind of two parts to it. I think if we're trying to figure out why guys do this,
Yeah.
part one, it's just blatant disrespect, disregard, and misogyny. Sexual aggression. It's a form of sexual aggression. I think that the other part of it is that it's not like it has a 0% chance of success. And I think that it's a very easy way for men to engage that can work in some limited circumstances. I just would challenge all parties involved. What sort of relationship are you looking for? And can you think about the foundation of that relationship right from the beginning, to be more thoughtful about how we're going to bond? So sure, sex and sexuality and attractiveness and things of that nature may be a big part of a bond, but if you lead with that, you're deciding to put everything else secondary. And I suspect, not in all circumstances, but in many circumstances, that's going to lead to more challenge building the rest of the relationship.
Right. It's like, if you're leading with an unsolicited picture, that's sort of the vibe of the relationship from the start.
And it's
so,
a big shift to try to make it anything else.
Yes, 100%. I also think leading with sex is easy and doesn't require any sort of depth or emotional vulnerability from that person that's leading with sex. So in some ways it's kind of almost, it's like a cop out, I think. Because it's much harder for a male or any other person to lead with like, hey, like, I got out of a serious relationship a little bit ago. Here's what I'm looking for. how does that sound to you? You know?
Yeah, or thereabouts. Yeah, we should talk maybe a little bit about kind of the early messages,
Yes.
and but also you asked the question about what do we how do we engage someone else's profile or somebody who's responded to us. So yeah, I guess I don't know, what should we start with?
Yeah, I think first, before the first message, what are we looking for when we're looking at other people's profiles?
Yeah, again, I think going back to aligning your intentions with your actions. So if you really want kids, you have to look at what they say about kids on their profile. If they don't want kids and you do, don't. It doesn't, like, none of the rest of it matters. If you know that that's in your, again, assuming long-term partnership is the goal, assuming, you know, marriage or something of that nature is the goal, then you kind of have to be thinking about how do our lives fit together. If living in this particular location is important to you, then you need to make that known. So there's plenty of people who are like, I don't want to live in a city anymore. I want to move out to the wilderness in Montana. You probably should be talking about that relatively early on in and anybody who's sort of like clearly deeply invested in the city life itself, you should be having a conversation with them fairly early on about that sort of clarity of shared or not shared vision. Because otherwise you're sort of wasting your time and you're wasting their time. And I hear from people like, yeah, we'll figure it out later. But what are you doing in the meantime? You know, you're sort of, if you found the dating experience somewhat futile and then at some point you discover that nobody's a good match, there are good matches. I promise you there are good matches. If you're finding that you're not finding any good matches, I promise you that's strategy. It sucks to hear that, but if you're not finding good matches, there are things that you can do to change the way that you find good matches. You might not like what those choices are, but it often involves vulnerability, introspection, and changing the way that you are approaching them rather than figuring out who they are.
Oh my gosh, yes. So much of what you said, I'm like clapping. I've heard from so many people like, oh no, like it's too early to talk about the serious stuff. Like you shouldn't get into those sorts of conversations until like 6 months in. I'm like, why? Well, what are we doing? Like
What are we doing for those 6 months? You got
we're
one
wasting our
life to live.
time. Like if you know, hard line, you want kids, and on their profile they said, you know, no, not open to kids. What are we doing? And you shouldn't go into a relationship thinking, oh, they might change their mind. Like,
Yeah.
no, sirens going off. No. And I also think too, I guess this is more on like what you should be putting on your profile, like, because there's the labels of like looking for short-term relationship open to long. If you know that you're just right now only looking for something casual, I don't think you should be putting open to long on there, because you're going to be attracting people that are like, oh, look, like maybe they are open to like a more serious long-term relationship, and you're going to catch those people. And it's going to be a heartbreaking thing for them at the end of this.
It's a really hard thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know, like maybe you would catch more matches that way, but that is not, again, it's leading with, we're trying to lead with love, right? And so if you know that you're strictly looking for something casual right now, just put looking for a short-term relationship, period. I just think that's kind of not nice when people do that.
And I'll also say, the more you tailor your relationship to what you're really looking for, the fewer matches you get, which is a good thing because they tend to be better matches.
Yeah, I think some of the members in our group are like, what? When you said that, when you're like, yeah, like if you're dating intentionally and well, you're going to not match with people as often. The matches will be of better quality, but like you're going to have more rejections and your app is not going to be as busy. And that's a good thing.
Right. The quality of the conversation will get better. And if you need more matches in order to get an ego boost, hire a hype man. Call your friends and hire a hype man. Don't put that on everybody else.
Yeah.
This isn't, it's, I know that sometimes in dating, if we are getting interest, it can help boost our ego a little bit. But again, is that fair to the other people? Is that a good way to engage them?
I don't think so. Okay. So say they align with like, we want kids, they want kids, we want long-term relationship. They say they want long-term relationship. Now we're looking at their like prompts. What should we be looking for in those?
Yeah, I think at this stage, if as best you can tell on a cursory level, the two of you have got a somewhat similar philosophy, knowing that you've got very little information, you know, almost nothing about this person. There's really, at this point, we begin the process of exploration and conversation. So at that stage, I would say that we're really just trying to find something to talk about, anything. Firstly, I think if you just pick a picture and like it, again, we're starting off easy. Secondly, if we are just picking a prompt and giving a basic response to it, or just liking a prompt or something of that nature and not saying anything more about it, then we're kind of going the low effort approach. I think it's okay if, I mean, on some apps, I think I've noticed this tendency for both people to be a little low effort right up front, or it's sort of like a prompt, say sup, the other person's like, how's it going? And then that's the beginning of the conversation. Okay, fine. But at some point, somebody needs to start working.
Yeah.
It is a process of actively beginning a conversation and asking the person questions, not interrogating, but like reflecting on something they've said and asking about something further. We just wrote a Substack, and part of it was my introducing this idea of react, respond, expand, which this was in the context of being supportive to somebody else. But I think it also works here. They have a prompt. You can react to the prompt. Like they say, spent 3 years in Tanzania doing like teaching French as a second language or something of that nature. And you can respond to that. React would just sort of be like, oh my God, that's so cool. I visited Tanzania. It was so beautiful there. That's the react. And the respond is sort of that I've been there and that was really cool. Expand would end up being, so react, but let me just break that down. React is, oh my God, that's so cool. Just an emotional reaction. Respond is a little content. I've been there. I'm going to give you some information. Expand is, let's pull the conversation in a new direction. So do you love travel? Do you ever want to go back? Do you keep in touch with anyone from there? Or maybe you expand by offering more of yourself. I'm so driven to get back there. I really would love to, you know, I never made it out to Zanzibar. I would love to go to Zanzibar. Like you're saying something that moves the conversation outward at all. This is just good conversation strategy, I think. You'll never hit all three of those, but like react, respond, expand can be a decent way to kind of think about like, am I pulling the conversation along at all?
Yeah. It's so funny. I feel like, especially in this like internet age that we're in, like we've lost a lot of those basic how to have a conversation with people. So that's a really good reminder to everyone.
And in this moment, I will almost always get from clients like, well, I don't want a pen pal. Settle down. You can have a few exchanges that have a little bit of quality conversation to them. Maybe even if you dare, I suggest you should dare, ask about some of the core fundamental, like really important questions. And then from there, you can try to get together for a date. If the core philosophy and mentality about dating and future plans and intentions are roughly in line, you're both clearly engaged in a textual conversation that's going somewhat well, and both parties have contributed to caring for the other in a conversational sense, go on a date. Now we're talking. You don't need to be a pen pal for days on end.
Yeah. And your philosophy is to get to the date part quicker?
Well, not necessarily. I think different strokes for different folks. It's complicated. Generally speaking, I would be of the opinion that if you spend a little bit more time in that conversational arena, you have more opportunity to learn a little bit more about the person. And I tended to find that if I stayed in conversation a little longer, I tended to find people that were better at conversation. There is the phenomenon of people that are very good at text conversation and not very good at in-person conversation. But you're less likely to find that. Like, a person who's not good at text conversation probably isn't very good at in-person conversation. So that does happen. So again, all of these are heuristics, but generally speaking, I found that if I could focus, excuse me, if I could focus on better conversation in text, I tended to have better conversation in person, not always, but often. And if you're wanting to eliminate this constant experience of going on drab first dates that only last a little while and people seem unidimensional and not very interesting, make sure they're interesting before you go meet them.
Yeah.
Make sure they align with your big goals, needs, values before you meet them. Share with them the important information before you meet them. Your time is precious. Make sure that people have earned it by caring for you, caring about you, pulling their weight, and you've done the same. Then I think you tend to find that you have better first dates. That's my argument.
No, I completely agree. And I like this this framing of like, make sure they've earned it, because I think a lot of times what gets exhausting about dating is we maybe don't spend enough time in conversation over the apps with this person, to the point where we are going on a bunch of these first dates, and then within the first 5 minutes of the actual date, we're like, oh man, if I had known that prior, I probably wouldn't have gone on this date, and now I'm wasting my time and my money and my energy on this date when I could have been at home with my cat, you know?
Absolutely agree. Now, I think that the counter argument is people who say, like, I just want to meet up and see if there's chemistry. I don't want to waste my time texting. You're going to have to waste your time one side or the other. Either you're going to waste your time in person or you're going to waste your time texting. I argue texting is cheaper, faster, and if we can get a little bit better about being a little more direct about the things that we're really looking for and are very curious about, then I think you can find better matches. Even you can set yourself up for better first dates by making sure that you're having better text conversations, but you don't have to go on forever. You don't have to go on for a long period of time or anything of that nature. Just make sure it's a little higher quality for a little longer than you tend to. And you tend to get that by making sure that you've got better matches right from the start, which goes into intentional profile building and intentional engagement with their profile. It's just intentionality all the way down. The more thoughtful you are about all parts of this process, the better off you're going to be, and the more likely you are to have the success that you're looking for. And when you start doing this, the bad matches will bounce off of you.
Right.
The people who don't want a depthy conversation aren't interested in the fact that you want to make sure that you feel safe and secure and connected before you meet up in person. They'll judge you and they'll go away.
Yeah. Because those people are looking for something different.
They're looking for something different, so they'll bounce off.
Yeah.
If you say, like, hey, I would love to have a little bit more of a conversation before we meet up, just to make sure that we're kind of in the same ballpark of things we're looking for, it's not uncommon for that person to be like, I just think we should just meet up and meet up in person and figure it out. And it's like, well, if what's important to you is making sure that you feel good and confident going into the first date, they've just said, I don't care what you need. I care what I need.
Lot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Again, you have to lead with what you need, what's important to you, and let rejection happen. Rejection in a dating sense is a good thing. Painful, but it is a good thing. The people who are rejecting you are just qualifying themselves as good matches.
Yes. 100%. And rejection is so much a part of the dating game. And if we can accept that piece of it, anticipate that piece of it, and not try to like avoid it, I think we'd be better off, because I think a lot of clients are just so worried about the rejection piece. But it's like, it's going to happen. Like it's going to.
It's going to happen. You're going to have to reject, and you're going to be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the game. Yeah. And the Stoics had this framing of amor fati, love your fate. From pain comes growth, which means if you want to grow, if you want to get better at this, if you want to have different experiences, I want you to fail. I want you to be rejected. I want you to suffer the difficulty of this process being hard. I know nothing I just sold you sounds good, but you will get better, and you will grow, and you will change, and you'll be more confident, you'll be better connected. It's worth it. I argue it's worth it to love your fate in that way. So bring it on. Rather than run from it, bring it on. And if you get exhausted, if you get defeated, call your friends, call your parents, talk to your therapist, take a break, but then get back at it. If it's important to you, get back at it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like we might have even skipped some stuff. Like I would love in a future conversation to talk about the lone soldiers who are sort of hearing all of this and being like, why bother? Why bother with any of this? And themes of avoidant attachment. I would love to talk about people who don't really know what they want, and how do we kind of move forward with dating while we're sort of like, I think this is, but I'm not really sure what. So I would love for us to get into some of those topics as well. Yeah. And then also from there, we could begin to talk about like, so how do I have the first date? How do I, and I was talking with a friend just the other day about texting after the first date and being really in their head about like, so now do I just have to entertain them all day long? And like, what is my role in all this? People are in their heads, people are in their heads, people are in their heads.
There is so much more to talk about in the way of this conversation topic. And yeah, we can totally delve into future episodes. But I think this is a really good introduction for now of how do we start this process.
Yeah.
As always, I'm very curious about the quote behind your head. We choose what we do not change.
Kind of harkens to that last idea we talked about there, where if I am so afraid of rejection that I won't allow myself to experience it, then in some way I'm consenting to the experience of fear of failure, fear of rejection. I'm agreeing to that mindset. I'm agreeing to that circumstance. And I'm choosing to stay in that. And I'm choosing to let that state affect the way that I play. And I would argue that we can here too be very intentional about driving toward change in the ways that are important to us. If I need something, if I want something, if I want the world to be different, very likely the way that I can make it different is through change of self.
Yeah.
There are certain things that will not change and I cannot control. We're but small little hobbits. But there are lots of things that we can change, and the way that we're going to do that is through intentionality and probably pain. So, but if we are electing not to do that, probably because of a fear of the emotional pain, maybe even the physical pain, then we're choosing stagnation. You're allowed to. There's a cost.
Yeah, no, it's the saying, like, not making a choice is a choice. Yeah.
Indecision is a decision.
Right. Well, thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Delve podcast. As always, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy here at Delve Psych of Chicago. Head on over to our website to book a consultation at delvepsych.com, DELVEPSYCH.com. Head on over to our Substack, delvepsych.substack.com. We have some really awesome blog posts on there. And help us spread the word. You know, we're not trying for fame here on this podcast. We don't plan to run ads. So it's really through word of mouth that this podcast will grow. And we're really just trying to add value and be helpful to as many people as possible. So if you found value in this podcast, share it. Share it with one other person.
Thank you so much, Allie. I appreciate your conversation with me today.
Yeah, thank you. See you guys next week.